If you've always wanted to try acrylic markers in your card making, but were put off by the price, then this video is for you. Hi everyone, I'm Rebecca Keppel, and in today's video, I am sharing a new set of acrylic markers from Arrtx, which they sent me to try out and share with you all. And this is a budget-friendly set of acrylic markers that are water-based with a brush tip. They are so easy to use, and there's so many fun techniques that you can do with acrylic markers in card making that I wanted to share them with you. First up, let's take a look at the colors that come in this set. So that you can see that they are bright and opaque, I'm going to swatch them out on white cardstock and black cardstock. First, let me share a little bit about this set. This is a 30-piece acrylic marker set, like I mentioned. They're water-based and they have a brush tip. So when you open up the box, you see one row of markers. There's 15 in the top row, and then when you lift the tray there are 15 underneath, but you can see this top row is definitely my colors, right? So lots of brights, some pastels, and some light colors, just pinks and bright blues. I just love them all. And then you have your darker colors and some purples, greens, grays, and a black as well. There's a white in the top tray, a black in the bottom tray. So they come with, like I mentioned, 30 different colors. I feel like this is a great set, not a starter set. This is a great set with a little bit of everything that you need to use these acrylic markers on a number of different crafts. These markers are a nice size, easy to hold. They have caps that easily come off. You don't need to prime these brush tips. You don't have to push down on them to get the ink flowing. So right away, as soon as you get started, the ink is flowing to the tip, which is really nice. And I think that also helps these not to dry out, because the way that they're made means that they're just flowing. Sometimes when you have paint pens and you have to press on the tip to get the ink flowing, the nib gets kind of dried out. So you shouldn't have a problem with these. The brush tip is going to stay nice and flexible, and you're going to be able to transfer ink really easily. It comes out very smoothly. As you can see, there are just a great set of colors. They look great on black cardstock as well as white cardstock. As you can see from the swatches, the first technique that I want to share is coloring on black or dark colored cardstock. These acrylic markers look great on both. So I am going to work on black cardstock. I'm going to use Simon Hurley's latest Friendship Florals. Now this can be a layering stamp. I'm going to use them as an outline stamp. I'm going to treat some black cardstock with anti-static powder tool, and I'm going to stamp up the image and the sentiment with Versamark ink. I'm going to pour some white heat embossing powder on top of that and tap off the excess, and then I'm going to heat set it. I'm going to make sure that this image is nice and cool before I get going. So as you can see, the tips are very fine. You can get some thicker strokes by using the mid or larger part of the brush closer to the top of the pen, but when you're using the very tip of it, the ink is still flowing very smoothly and plenty of ink is coming out. It's not oozing out, but it's coming out smoothly enough that I'm able to use just the very tip of the marker to color in these small images. I'm trying my best to avoid the white heat embossed lines so that they still stand out really nicely and you can still see every detail of the image that I stamped. So I'm going in with a different green here to color in these different leaves. So I'm using two different colors of greens for the two different types of leaves in this image. And again, I'm able to go into these smaller areas with the very tip of the pen. And then you'll see as I start working in some of the larger areas, I move to sort of the side or more thicker part of the brush, and I'm able to color those larger areas in as well. Now, this actually dries pretty quickly. As you can see, it is completely opaque on the black cardstock. That's why I wanted to work on black, because that's the darkest color, I wanted to make sure you saw how opaque these markers come out even on black cardstock. So as I'm working, I do try and avoid pressing my hand down on parts that I just worked on, but this ink actually dries pretty quickly. So other inks may seep into the cardstock and that causes it to be less opaque. I don't know if this is sitting on top, if this is just a different formulation, but I was really happy with how the colors looked on the black cardstock and how they dried relatively quickly. So usually when you have things that sit way on top of the paper, it takes forever and a day to dry. But these were dry very, very fast, and yet they retain the color that you colored in and not picking up the black. So for the flower, I am trying to see how I can blend a little bit between the colors, and you can definitely get the brush stroke look by flicking the brush the way I'm doing from the center of the flower towards the outside. That's a technique that I would use with Copic markers to get those brush stroke looks on flowers, and you can definitely achieve them with these markers. So I don't know how much blending between their colors there was, but for sure you can get a layered look where I have the darkest color at the bottom, then a mid-tone, and then the lightest color on the tips of the petals. I'm going to do the same exact thing with these smaller flowers, only with some orange tones. So I start with the lightest color just to fill in the whole petal with that light color, and then I go in and do some small brush strokes from the center of the petal towards the outside, just to create that different look where the flower has a few different colors on those petals. So I'm going to go in and just fix a few spots that I missed. I was trying so hard not to get close to the white embossing powder that I did miss a few spots, but check this out. I am blown away by how well these markers are standing up to the black cardstock. I did want to share that you can use the white marker to add what you would think of as maybe gel pen details. Look at how fine I can get those dots. So if you're somebody who can't find a good white gel pen, this is a great alternative. They make teeny tiny little dots and little lines with the tip of that pen, and it even shows up opaque on the black cardstock and on the other ink colors. So I was really, really happy with the white as well. This technique would look great on other colors of dark cardstock as well as craft cardstock and with those white pen details. The other great thing about acrylic markers is that they're basically a paint pen. So they work really well on things like plastic or acetate. So I'm going to color in a shaker window on a piece of acetate. I'm going to use a piece of Judican's embossable plastic and I'm going to place it inside my mini Misty. I grabbed a couple of stamps from the Simon Hurley Spread Your Wings stamp set. Again, I'm using an outline stamp for today and a sentiment from the same set. With embossable plastic, you want to put a ton of anti-static powder tool because plastic is very staticky. And then I'm going to ink up the stamps with Versamark ink, and once I stamp them down, I'm going to pour some gold embossing powder from Hero Arts on top and carefully heat set that, trying my best not to warp it too much when I'm heat setting it. Then I tried to color in one of the wings with one of the markers, and I'm using a blue. What I found was all those little details of the wings, with something clear like this, the best thing to do is just flip it over and color in the back. This way you don't have to fight with the little borders of the embossing powder because it is raised. It's hard to get the pen tip into the teeny tiny little details that were the wings and the tail feathers. But if you color them from the back like this, when you flip it over, it looks just like you colored it from the front. So I did the other wing as well. And now I'm going to color in the body of the bird and use a yellow for the beak of the bird as well. So this was really easy to do once I realized just flip it over and color those in, and look at those beautiful colors with the gold embossed details. So pretty. I did want to add a few dots with the white marker because now I'm completely obsessed with this white marker. I may have to use it all the time, and I may have to get another set of these just to be sure that I have a couple of white markers on hand. But check out those details, and those I did right on top. Another medium in card making that you can color on with these acrylic markers is vellum. So I'm going to emboss a piece of vellum and then color it in. I know it's hard to see right now, but I did emboss an A2 size piece of vellum with the Spellbinders Scenic Poinsettias embossing folder. And once I start coloring, you'll see the details more, but I am not coloring in every single thing. So I'm not going to color in the lines that were embossed. I'm coloring in the kind of open areas, and I don't want to go to the edges of the embossed line, similarly to the way that I didn't want to cover up the white heat embossing. I want you to be able to still see the details of this beautiful embossing folder, but I want to really accent these images with these markers, and they show up so beautifully on the vellum. It's unbelievable. So here you can see on the leaf especially where I don't color into the lines of the embossing folder. I want those to stand out and still be raised and not colored in, because when you emboss vellum, it almost turns those lines white. And so I thought that was a really pretty look on its own, but it's very fun to color in parts of these images. So for my poinsettias, I'm going to have some be white and then some be red. So I tried to do every other one on the card, one color and then the other, and then they all have yellow centers for the flowers. There's little red berries on a stem, and then there are some holly leaves, and then there's another type of leaf. So I colored two different types of greens, red for the berries, yellow for the centers of the flowers, and then white and red for the petals. Again, I'm not coloring all the way up to the edge of that emboss line, just so that it still kind of stands out. So you can see what I'm doing there. I'm really just coloring in, especially with the red, it shows up so beautifully. I'm just coloring in the center of those embossed areas so that it shows up in color, which is a totally different look for this embossing folder, and I absolutely love it. Now let's turn these into a few different cards. For this first card, I am just going to cut down the panel to 4 by 5 1/4 and layer it over some metallic cardstock from Memory Box. It's from the Vintage Pastels line. That's all you need to complete this gorgeous, colorful card on the black cardstock. To make the shaker, I cut out the waffle flower wooden frame die out of some cardstock, and I'm going to put some tape runner behind it and then adhere it down to the shaker window that we created. Then I took some foam tape and doubled it up and then cut it the widthwise in half so that it fit behind that die cut easily without a problem, and I wasn't worried about it sticking out. I'm going to make a rectangle around the frame and making sure that my tape touches each other so that none of these shaker goodies comes out. So those shaker goodies are from Lucy's Little Things. And then I just peel off the protective layers on the back of the foam. You can see my shaker window is a little bit warped, and that's okay. I probably should have been a little more careful when I was heat setting it. I'm going to place an A2 piece of white cardstock on the back and press it down. And then I can place this under a book or something heavy later to try and get some of the warping to kind of straighten out a little bit. But isn't that so much fun with the gold embossing powder and the colors? For the vellum, I am going to adhere it down to an A2 piece of craft cardstock. I'm putting Ultra Bond glue on the areas where there's color so that you won't see it from the front at all. Just little dots of glue all around that panel that I did cut down to 4 by 5 1/4 so that I could mat it on this craft cardstock. And I just absolutely love the look of the vellum with the ink coloring on top. I think I'm going to be doing this again very soon because that was a lot of fun to do. And I just like that look. I think it's different and fun. For the sentiment, I'm using the Merry Christmas Duo from Waffle Flower. I'm going to stamp and heat emboss it on some of the same craft cardstock that I used in the back there. I'm going to pour white heat embossing powder on top and then heat set it so that it melts that embossing powder and shows up nice and bright white. I'm going to hold the die in place with some pixie tape and cut it out, and then use some of that foam tape to pop it up as well. Just wanted to make sure that the 3 flower centers could be seen because those 3 pops of yellow look so fun on this card with the craft. I am blown away by how well this budget-friendly set of acrylic markers works. They would also work on a ton of other crafts, things like coloring on glass, coloring on mirrors, coloring on ornaments that are wood or porcelain. So these really can span the gamut of lots of different mediums that you can use them on. If you want to check out these acrylic markers from Arrtx, they will be linked down below in the YouTube description box under the video. I have another video coming up this week using metallic watercolors from Arrtx, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss that. As always, I want to thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. Please stay safe, stay healthy, and I'll see you again soon. No. Nope, 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 nope. Okay, next up. One more. No. No. That are no. Nope, 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 nope.